Good morning. Welcome to another exciting MicroGiants meeting. Today we're going to kick off the new year 2024 with some personal um, problems, challenges that small businesses are likely to have this year. Of course, we're not going to get all of them done because there are way more challenges than the four we're going to discuss. But we thought we'd go through these and then we'll have quick comments and then just kind of go out to the next person. So we're going to put Jon on first and tell us what your big challenge is, Jon.
Well, I think this year is an election year. So we have that. We have storms everywhere, so to speak, from a Wall Street that's being run really by 6 or 10 companies. There's not much in the market that makes any sense. It's obviously giving some really high returns, but it doesn't really hit me in my house. There's nothing that really aligns with that. You have Silicon Valley, who is just figuring out better and better, quicker ways to steal your data and know more about you than you know. And so it kind of puts you in a position of, the 20 plus years, 25 years I've been in business and being a capitalist, of kind of reevaluating what does capitalism mean to me. And I think, I was working on different words from conscious to I don't know what the word is, but like to be a conscious capitalist. And I think that the definition of capitalism really is that I have capital, I've put it out there, and I've risked it. And that risk then deserves a certain reward. And I just have this feeling among my last 4 or 5 years of experience in bigger business and capital markets and, the raw materials and shipping and all this stuff going on. You have these really big players. They don't risk much and they make more money than the little guy. And so I kind of am thinking that this year is going to be a challenge for everybody, but it's really going to be a challenge for the Main Street or the solopreneur. We got to get up earlier, work harder, use tools as best we can to get to the goals. And I think the challenge is in a really unknown market. I just have no idea what's going on, that you have to kind of bring it back in and be conscious of your capital expenditures. For most of us, our biggest capital expenditure is time. We might capitally put dollars into an investment, or we might, fund a business or other pieces like that. But, how do we use our time? And then how do we kind of purchase on the purchasing side of life, from your home to your business? Are we purchasing from capital partners who you want to support? And I'm leaning much more towards that Main Street idea. If I'm going to buy a beer, I think I need to go to a local brewery versus buying my Coors Light, so to speak. And I think that is going to be a real challenge for most of the group that Ron brings in here, that the small business owner is just going to struggle with inflation. They have no control over inflation, with maybe some weird buying cycles again. We have, election cycles that always make things happen weird. We're going to have a decline off this high point on the stock market. So for me, it really is kind of thinking back into either being a manager, business owner, individual. Can we be conscious of our capital expenditures in a way that we're supporting, I think, generally a more conservative point of view of, on the financial side, a conservative financial position where we really are supporting those companies and, partnering with companies, buying companies that really kind of are putting products first, a good solid product where you can get value, there's quality and service backed, behind it, so that you can fight these really large corporations. Amazon and drop ship selling is just blowing up. It's hurting the local guys. And, services are doing well for a small, medium business owner, from air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical. There's not enough service people in that world. So there's an opportunity there, but you really got to fight and you got to be smart about it. And so I really, since I have nothing better to do right now, I've been thinking a lot about it, and that, those are things I want to support moving forward. And as I look at other opportunities that are in the marketplace for me and my family, it's like we need to choose things that really kind of are conservative in nature. But also, when we're going to spend that capital on something, let's go with the company that is giving back in a way that we feel is better than just this big, huge, mega corporations that are really, monopolies, and kind of back off the monopolies. And, if we're at a tipping point here in 2024 with all this economic world situations going on, we don't want to end up in a feudal place, a feudalist kind of a few kings and knights with really nice castles, and the rest of us are plebes. So that's kind of where I'm looking at 2024 as being a real challenge. You're going to have to work hard, get up early, early bird gets the worm kind of thing. Focus on those things, use the 80-20 rule to make sure that we're focusing on returns that make some sense. And then if you're in the product business, or if you're selling a service or product in a way that, people are consuming it, let's make sure we have the best possible product with good service, with, great reputation back behind it, not just, try to get the lowest dollar, because I think the first that will slide are these companies that are only about selling that product one time and not really thinking about it again, or selling a really inferior product. And I think we've all been, washed with Chinese crap for the last few years, because of the Walmart, Amazon kind of importing. And let's really think about it as I'm going to buy something quality. I might spend a little more money. I'm going to buy from the person who made it, these sort of things. So that's really what I see for the year. And it's not much of a prediction, so to speak. I think we just know that the challenges are there, and how do we deal with that?
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty big bite out of the economic mix, I think. And I think that you've talked about things that the way I look at them, you keep talking about market focusing on the market. Stay out of the way of the big guys. Don't let them swallow you up, because they will. They're going to be fighting for business, and they're going to swallow up anything they can get to. So if you maintain your product mix that is different and then unique, and keep your customers different and unique based on your product, then you've got an opportunity to be able to move forward. Other comments?
I want to add, I guess, to the challenges. Looking at the 2024, I believe one of the biggest things I might have already seen people struggle with, it's the damage that the high inflation did probably the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
Or years. And so say they get out under control, that inflation is still going to linger around for maybe another year or two before it. An example would be is the businesses, the restaurants that I work with, were not able to adjust their price quick enough for the cost of goods to make some damage into the profits. So they had to increase their prices, meaning a lot less people were able to go and buy their food, even if they wanted to. Those people might be also a little bit more pinching their pennies kind of thing. And so I feel like that trickled all the way down to even the government doing effects of increasing the minimum. And the problem is that minimum, even though they're probably trying to do the right thing, it's going to affect some businesses where they might have to fire that person and work themselves again on some business that I work with, or hire less people, or close certain days that they normally wouldn't want to close because they can't afford to pay the payroll, and they can't afford to work themselves all 7 days a week, maybe one day off. So starting to see these schedule shifts, these people going back to work, owners going back to work, self-employers. So I feel like this is an adapting until almost like somebody took a big rock to a big pond that was stable and clear for a very long time, and now it's muddy. And so it's taking a little bit for all this to kind of settle down. And I'm starting to see some of those effects, I think. That's that inflation with the government interfering with salaries. One thing positive, though, maybe that I saw compared to last year, I don't want to call it positive. I don't know what the science of this is, but about a year and a half ago, you had to beg people to come to work and on their own terms.
Yeah.
Every day I go visit a restaurant today, almost every single time I go in there, there's people, new faces, right? I don't know what happened to the old faces.
Yeah.
And then one other thing is, almost every time I go, somebody's walking in there asking for a job.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I've been experiencing that the job pool, the people willing to work, has increased, in my personal opinion, zero data, probably twice as much as it did the last couple of years to try to find somebody to work. Now the problem is that we don't have enough to give that person a job at even the ice cream shops as we wanted to, but probably like a year ago. And so that's kind of what I started noticing. And a very low local level, you can say, Inland Empire.
So are you seeing that your clients are seeing a lower demand? Are there fewer customers coming in to eat?
Just to in reference, my business is based on residuals, right? The sales of businesses. So I had to increase my customers probably a good 30%. I had to add a good 30% more clients on sales that I do to offset the amount of sales that they dropped.
So you're saying that they've actually dropped by 30%. That's a pretty
my salary dropped by 30%, which I had to go back and make it up by adding more clients.
And that's directly related in this case to the use of credit cards. So that's a good number. It's a good solid number.
So I'm basing it on those numbers. Most of the clients are in Inland Empire. Let's say we have a sample size of 30 people, 30 businesses or restaurants. And so, I had to go and add more clients. Well, let's just say 20, because I had to add another 10 more. I had to go out there and seek out more clients, more revenue for me to be back to a number that I was maybe 6 months ago. And so,
So if you're seeing a price increase of say 5 to 15% over 2 years, and you still drop 30%, that's pretty good.
And that's a good example. Is like the good thing about my business is inflation. They have to increase their prices. That includes my pay a little bit, but it's not enough to offset the sales that they dropped.
Yeah.
And so that's at least in the restaurant industry. I can't speak for any other industry.
Yeah.
And also for the small, I can't speak for. And here's another thing. It's all observations. I don't know if I'll give any value based on this, but I've observed that the Applebee's, the big franchises, seem to be busier than ever. Not sure why. And when I go to the mom and pop shop, they're, some of them are still struggling to bring up clients that they had in the past. Don't know if it's the specials that they have, the 2 for 20s, the 30s, the happy hours, stuff that maybe the small mom and pop doesn't have. Don't know if that is causing them to go visit the Applebee's of the world, I guess you can say, compared to the mom and pop. And if the mom and pop shops prices have gone closer to what it is to go eat at Applebee's, depending on the scenario, maybe sometimes less based on what I've seen. So I don't know if that is affecting them or not in their sales. But just an observation that I think inflation is it's going to take a few months, maybe a year to settle things down even more after what already happened. I feel like things stabled a little bit when it comes down to the prices of cost of goods, but they keep increasing the minimum wage to catch up, and that also affects things.
Yeah.
Related to that, Edgar, I've some of my friends go to McDonald's and they come back and they say it's cost them $50.
Yeah.
To feed their family. And then that kind of gets to your point, how much inflation has really impacted the pricing.
Yeah, it's right. And so the McDonald's customer is coming from the regular hamburger joint, most likely. They want to get a hamburger, but they don't want to spend $15 or $20 for it. And then they go to McDonald's and it still costs $10, $12 a person. And so you walk away with a $15, $20, $30, $40 bill. So it's really remarkable.
Well, I think I'd add just a little more, and it probably is a little more data driven to what you really said, Edgar, and that was, from the manufacturing side, a lot of our raw materials went up through the last few years. It was actually driven a lot more from transportation issues than it was necessarily, resource issues. And it certainly wasn't an increase in pricing because inflation, so to speak, because these bigger companies that make raw materials generally have, economies of scale, and they're generally investing in innovative new ways to make it cheaper, faster, better. That's hard for a small business to do that. And the interesting part about most of the manufacturing then was, as we had some kind of COVID-related transportation-driven pricing, that settled down. But when you go the next level up into these kind of quasi raw materials, say boxes, cardboard, You know, you're taking pulp and you're making a box like you've always done, and you probably do it better than you did 10 years ago, and it should be cheaper. Those things didn't really come down. And so you saw manufacturing struggle with the same issues as a small business, and that labor drove so much of their price increases. And these hidden inflationary things that you kind of, from a big mind, go, well, these guys have a lot more power. They can finance easier than us. They can get better terms. All these things that they have at their side of the journal, it was being passed on everywhere. And, the inflationary pieces are still happening at the manufacturing level, which means that your ketchup at the store, that bottle is going to be a little more, that tomato's a little more. It's going to take a while for that to happen. But on the flip side, the big companies just don't understand their niches very often. They often do really stupid things. And you see some franchises, my son works at Chick-fil-A. That place is never stopping. It is humming, and they were really good at a few things. And it's a really good example of a franchise that found its niche and just doesn't break out of it. Small businesses that are just mom and pops, they have to do that. And they have to have one or two of these really nice A+ things on the menu or product and, service that, when I want a chili relleno, I have a place, right? And my wife will always say, if I'm going to Rosie's, don't buy her this because she doesn't like it there, but buy her that. And you're kind of like, every place has its little niche, and you kind of need to tell these small business owners, hey, if you're really good at a few things, let's stop trying to copy the big guys. You don't have to give the same deals. You don't have the power to do it. We're really focusing on that quality product. And that's kind of what I was originally thinking about. And that a challenging marketplace means, as a small business owner, you really have to be better. You have to stop, take a look at the market, make sure you're in the right market, look at the competitors coming in, and really just have one or two bellwether kind of products that can make it through the tough times. Focus back in on that on your 80-20 and say, we're going to cut some things from the menu because it seems like people don't like this, or the guy across the street just kills me on that. Why should I compete directly against them on that product mix? So it's a real challenge to catch up to that inflation. And it is amazing when you look at the labor side. With manufacturing, we had the same sort of issues as restaurants, that for a while you couldn't get anybody. And then right now you could get anybody. I mean, they'll just come in the door. There's a lot of people out there. They'd be happy to have that job, but they're not necessarily better. There's no advantage among that pool of people coming in to say, I've increased my workforce. Does that make it a better workforce? Who knows? And that goes along the whole market, that you do have some weird other things going on. On the big scale, we have the boomers retiring. We're replacing them with Zennials or Xers or whatever they are down at the low, some of the A's probably now. And those individuals come in with a different mentality, different expectations. And that's always a challenge. It's been a challenge for all businesses for all time.
Yeah, very good. So I see we're gravitating towards the same stuff. My particular one was pricing strategies. And of course, that ties into inflation and the issue of low demand because of inflation. We talked a little bit about that. And Edgar, you filled us in on what's going on in restaurants. And I think that's happening everywhere. Customers, clearly, the vast majority of customers, maybe 80-90% based on what I read, have been affected by bumping up against their monthly budgets. And, as that old saying is that, the paycheck runs out before the month ends, kind of thing. It's just there's not quite enough money for that next paycheck, and then you just keep plotting, and therefore, as a result, you're forced to go into debt. And then, of course, the consumer gets a little bit freaked out when that goes on, and so they have to physically stop buying as much stuff somehow. And so the issue of pricing strategies is we can't explore it. You can do three or four sessions on it, but pricing strategy is a complex issue. It's really the core of supply and demand and economics, but it's at a micro level. So the question was, okay, well, what do you do in order to be able to really look at the pricing strategy and see if you can do anything about it? So one of the things I think that small businesses are not very good at is understanding fixed and variable expenses in order to be able to determine what this price, value, and volume relationship is. Because if you can keep your prices the same or lower your prices or provide better value for the same money, theoretically, you should be stealing customers instead of losing customers. And therefore, if you if you can readjust that over time, you can maintain your business or even grow your business because you're doing a better job. And so you have to look at sources for value in order to be able to kind of complement this whole volume strategy as well. And looking for value is hard. If you happen to be a retailer like I was the last time this happened in the 70s, we really, and we were lucky at this because I had a mentor and a buying partner that was very good at looking for value. And so he sort of taught me how you do it. How do you negotiate to buy better? And that's a whole talent in itself. So we went out and we found more buying partners who were not geographically overlapping so that we could join our orders together. And instead of buying, normally you'd buy, say, 12 or 18, depending on what, this is the fashion industry, 12 or 18, depending on it was shoes, clothing, etc. You didn't buy onesie twosies, you had to buy kind of a group. Well, what we would do is we'd say, okay, what is your 10 case price? And then it's sort of like, wow, that's maybe 20, 30% lower. So if we could increase our buying volume, and then split the orders, that meant that we could either lower our price, number one, or increase our margins, number two. It's harder to do in food. I understand that. And the margins are teeny, so you can only cut pennies off, not dollars, not big percentages. But that was one of the ways that we were able to do that. So the other thing that we did is we went outside of our area. These stores happened to be in the Metro Denver area. Well, we would go to New York to the markets. Why? Because Denver always lagged by 6 months or a year behind what was going on in New York. And so the stuff was becoming obsolete in New York just about the time they were trying to get rid of their inventory. So we would go in and take a look at these, we call them jobbers, because what they would literally do is they would go to manufacturers, they would buy what was left in their warehouse. They would buy them for 20 cents on the dollar. They'd try to get 40 cents on the dollar. So we're buying things at 40, 50 cents on the dollar, and therefore we had incredible opportunity. And I'm not talking about crap stuff. In those days, we were getting all leather boots from Italy for 50, 60, 70% of what we were getting them from America or other countries. And so that kind of relationship allowed us to number one, allowed us to provide better value at lower prices. And it also gave us an opportunity to have one hell of a sale at the end of the year. So we were building in our sale merchandise before this was done a lot. It is done a lot now by the big guys, not the little ones, but the big ones. And so as a result, you'd end up with more merchandise than you planned. You could mark it down 30, 40, 50%, still make Keystone or double plus a buck or two. So that was how we were able to do part of it. Then also reducing SKUs is something that, John, you started to talk a little bit about. Do what you're good at. Marketing people have always known that line extensions don't work. In other words, people say, we want to do more business and therefore we'll offer more products. Maybe people will buy more. It almost never works. Why? You don't know that business. That's not what you're good at. If you're really good at tacos, just because you have that chile relleno doesn't mean you're good at it. So do what you're good at. So John's exactly right about that. But also, don't just add a whole bunch of products. Number one, it destroys your inventory planning. You've got extra products, extra units, extra money invested in products that are not going to turn over well. You don't necessarily have the customer base to sell it. And it's just not you. It's not what you're about. Do what you do. And that's one way to do it. So those are groups of things, but it is a combination of creativity, hard work, really working hard, working with your suppliers to help you solve problems, knowing your price points. How many small businesses buy to price points today? Not very many. They do a standard markup. Well, what could happen if you found that you got, I don't know, instead of a high-level pork, you bought a pork butt, and you built a whole new, if you're really good at enchiladas, and you decide to do a whole new special, but that's going to be priced at about, 70 or 80% of what your competitive enchiladas are, and you're doing a really good job. Now what you've done is you've tried to say, well, people like to spend $12.95 in this restaurant for a really, really good burrito. Well, see if you can give it to them. Try to make that happen by looking a little harder with other vendors. Try new vendors that you haven't tried before, because they want your business and they're willing to work with you to get you to go away from their competitor. Then the last part of that is the numbers side. Pricing theory and strategy involves really understanding your numbers. You mentioned break evens earlier, Edgar, in trying to take a look at, well, where are we? And of course, and I mentioned fixed and variable costs. And you guys all know that that's one of my hot buttons. Well, you can't do pricing strategy if you don't know that. You can't, because you don't know at what point you begin to make money after you've paid your variable, your direct costs on that food. When you begin to make money, that's when you don't have to keep raising the price as a percentage. One quick example, and that was that I remember in the business I was in, the high fashion business, you don't really have an opportunity to fill in. In other words, to buy inventory out of the wall, we would say, or out of stock. And so, but occasionally that happened. And so we had one company, a big company, major company called GH Bass. You've probably seen those shoes around. And they're classic penny loafer, which doesn't mean anything today. Nobody wears them, but I bet Ed had a pair of those at one time. I mean, I wore them all the time, different kinds. Now I'm dating myself now, but I was able to get this really hot top product, and I could reorder it. So because I had an inventory system, I went through, I did the calculations on what my profit would be if I increased my volume by 20%. So I lowered the price. Now all hell broke loose. The rep came in, it's illegal, still is, to tell a retailer what he can sell for. But so he couldn't tell me. I was a pretty large buyer. I had multiple stores at that time. I was a status buyer as an independent retailer, a fashion leader. He couldn't do anything to take that line away from me. He knew I'd sue him if he tried. And so I was able to lower the price. And as a result, all the other big chain stores went absolutely bananas, but my volume doubled. So he comes in ranting and raving. I remember his name even today. And he tells me that what I'm doing is I'm footballing him. I'm saying, no, I'm still making money. And I pulled the numbers out. I showed him what had happened because my turnover had gone up from 2 times a year to 4 times a year. That's massive if you do the calculations in terms of return on invested capital. And so I was able to show him that I had doubled my return on investment by lowering the prices of the shoes. That's what I'm talking about. That takes some creativity and some math. So any comments about that? And then we'll move on to Ed, who's going to get us into the good stuff.
I'll wait for Ed.
Yeah, go Ed.
Well, it's very true that you have to know your fixed costs and variable costs. And you got to be able to correlate that information to the revenue that you're bringing in. And obviously, if you're not making money at that level, you shouldn't be probably in business, right? So you have to make a conscious choice to be able to provide them something that people want that's going to pay you enough money to cover your expenses. So, and I think small businessmen are pretty good at controlling their expenses. So I don't think that's really the issue. I think they could probably all do a better job servicing their customers, which if you provide more quality to your customers, you could probably charge a higher price. I think probably a lot of small operators don't charge enough and they get themselves into trouble. So that gets into my next point. Probably the most important part to add to this conversation is working capital. And working capital is defined as current assets minus current liabilities. And I worked with clients where we put together this great plan. We showed a variable cost, fixed costs, showed a nice margins improving. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to what Edgar said, and that is, how much money can I take home? Well, when we looked at the numbers, his current assets and current liabilities, working capital, went up more than what he was bringing in of an incremental revenue and profit. So everything that he was making, none of it was going into his pocket. It was all going into his balance sheet. And I guarantee you, very few people look at their balance sheet in that manner. And that's really important. And that's where you get into the inventories, the receivables, the accounts payable, and all your other liabilities you have to pay out. And that's understanding not only the profitability of your products, but also the strength of your balance sheet. So I think that's really important. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't go that extra step. They don't even look at their balance sheet until they have to for doing their tax return or whatever. And they should be, because it's very, very important. It's just as important as the income statement. You got to have both. And the major reason why businesses go out of business is they don't have enough money to continue. And try to find money quickly, it ain't going to happen. That's another strategy, by the way, is to develop good relationships with banks and people that lend out money, so that you're actually getting your loan when you don't need it. And then when you need it, everything is cast in stone. You don't have to worry about negotiating, because once you need it, nobody wants to give it to you. So that's just a different perspective of adding to this wonderful conversation about how to make money and how to move a business forward.
Well, I think it's an important one too, Ed, as you mentioned. I'm reminded as you look at that, and we've discussed hard times as we're in right now, of the clients who were able to get through 2009 and those who really struggled getting through 2009. And in each case, they were companies that were conservative and they had really strong balance sheets. They had the ability to move. So when you're trying to make decisions, you need money in order to back that up. And that money is, of course, it's reflected on the balance sheet. So one example is that, a very strong company, once we figured out what was wrong with a wide variety of tools, digging into certain customers who were leaving, et cetera, we came to the conclusion that we were going to be able to turn it around simply by increasing the sales force. But that was expensive. We had to double the sales force in order to do that. After the analysis, they bought off on it and they said, okay, well, we're going to do it in 6 months or so. If it doesn't work, we're just going to have to fire the extra people. But it did work. And we were able to pull out of that recession faster and get back to break even much faster than most other companies did. And it was only because this company was willing to invest in really good people for a minimum of 6 months times 10. So they hired 10 new people, doubled the sales force, and sales did go up, and they did survive. And then the other side of it is that the point here is that you can look at a problem and analyze the problem and even have an opportunity, a consensus as to what to do. And if you don't have the money, it doesn't matter. So you've got to have the strength. Now, in this economy, we're a little bit late here saying, well, you need to make sure your balance sheet is good. You got to have plenty of cash reserves. You got to really be able to handle this when times are tough. So, well, they're already tough. But for the next time, make sure that you're putting that money in a place where you can access it and you can use it to implement whatever decisions you make about whatever the problem is. Because if you don't have the latitude of having that finances, you really have nothing. You're now making every single decision based on your cash and cash flow. I've been there, I've done that. That's stressful. It is no fun at all. And so I know most of you have been there too. And those of you watching, many of you are there, and probably all of you have been there. But that really helps a lot if you've got some cash in the bank.
Well, the big companies that John referred to at the beginning of this conversation, they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
They have a balance sheet that they can take advantage of anytime. Their focus is making more money on the P&L.
Yeah.
And whatever they need, extra cash, you get a deal on inventory or whatever, they just take it out of the bank. What an advantage they have over the small entrepreneur.
Somebody was complaining about Apple and that they weren't going to be selling as many new iPhones just the other day. And then someone else said, well, you know, when you take a look at how much cash they have, which I don't know is in the billions or trillions, I mean, it is just an unbelievable amount of money. He was saying, you know, you got to take a look at the individual pieces of business and that their services business is growing by 30% a year. They can make a lot of mistakes and wait until that 30% overtakes any loss in actual units sold. They may have a drop in units sold on a worldwide basis, but they know that their strategy is solid enough to be able to replace those dollars, because the truth of the matter is, if everybody in the world, I mean, almost literally, has a cell phone and they get better and better, as hopefully they will, you're going to buy them, you know, a few years later down the road. You're not going to replace them every year or two. And so, yes, mathematically that has to go down. Well, the Apple guys figured that out Tim Cook is like way ahead of that. And that's why they're working so hard on that other piece of the business. So, but if they didn't have the cash, they wouldn't have the luxury of sitting and waiting. So if you're worried about your stock, don't. You know, just wait a few years to sell it, because it's going to come back and they're going to do well because it's a well-run company. Small businesses have to think like that sometimes. Don't compete. Don't try and go into the cell phone business, but do something on the peripheral that you can be by yourself. Yeah.
Even at the lowest level with the ice cream shop, I feel like a lot of it is that it's 7 of us, so we have to keep the store alive with payroll on the line with the 2 stores. It was getting really difficult. We were not covering the cost. It was one dragging the other. When we started this, we added extra cash just to have working capital. We bought everything cash. We didn't have any loans. So our balance sheet looks amazing, but all that thing is locked up on goodwill, the purchase, on everything else. And we're out of cash. And so we have to keep throwing money in there just to keep the accounts, to keep running the basics of having the business running. Yeah. But then one of the things that kind of from both of your conversation, that line is, if we had we are the line of credit, 7 of us, so we're able to kind of keep earn owners contributions. But if it wasn't for that business would have already probably be in trouble. Yeah. That means that whoever has an ice cream shop by themselves are probably struggling right now. I wouldn't be surprised. The other thing is the concept, like, okay, if we survive this, there's probably going to be a lot less competition next year or the 2 years.
That's right.
Right. And I keep telling the partners that it's like, hey guys, we're doing we're better off than anyone else, because between 7 of us, we are kind of a small little bank that is keeping that thing alive.
Yeah. And guess what happens when that happens in a few years? All these locations that you couldn't otherwise get become available. And if you choose to a growth strategy, now you can actually lease places, favorably. So yeah. It's not all of that bad if you take a look at the long strategy.
And the final line strategy I told these guys is like, we need to identify what's different between all these other Michoacanas. Like they all have a different thing going. And I helped them come up with a product that hopefully we launched this year, which nobody has. But it aligns pretty well with the brand. It's a concha. I don't know if you guys heard of the Mexican bread. It's called a concha. It's really popular. And then the ice cream shop is called the Pearl. So we made we're gonna make our signature dish, which is a concha with a pearl inside, and then sell that and market only that. And we're gonna sell everything else, but that's gonna, instead of spending all this money marketing stuff that people already know what a Michoacana has, we're probably gonna spend our marketing dollars in one item that's unique, different, that can bring people and hopefully make an identity for that one place that offers the concha with an ice cream with the pearl inside, which is the ice cream.
Cool.
And everything when you guys were talking was coming ideas like, hey, I'm kind of trying to figure this out, trying to thinking how to. And also one thing that was really challenging is we were trying to add a new product, which was coffee, because we don't have any coffee in there. But bringing coffee, now we need to worry about sugar, creamer, new cups that we have to buy. Like, it's not as easy as saying, hey, we're going to offer coffee. And then if our coffee is mediocre, then all of a sudden it's like we're not going to sell too much of it to keep it of all that extra creamers inventory. Now we need to figure a way. So it was challenging just implementing a product. Like coffee, I was like, I never thought it was to be that hard, you know?
It's hard.
So,
It's a hard business, actually.
So what we did is like, what can we do with the majority of the ingredients that you already have here at the ice cream shop to come up with a hot drink? And so a lot of the ingredients they use for the ice cream shop, we came up with cafe de olla, like coffee that's already flavored, it's already made. And so we added the cafe de olla instead of regular coffee.
Good.
Because of the inventory situation. So even if we sell 10 of them in a month, that's from the ingredients that are already there, and a fixed cost of a what do you call it, of a thing that warms up the water, and we mix it all there. I'm already paying for payroll. So to me, it was like, I don't care if I sell 10, 15 of those, it's not going to affect us too much, but it's actually doing a little better than that. But the idea of like implementing coffee, if we have to go buy the creamers, who's going to go get them? Like all that stuff turned into like a little challenging. It's like, no, we have to be careful with this, what products we implement.
Yeah.
So right now I'm just coming up with new products with whatever we already have now, without increasing any more fixed or any monthly fixed costs, or increasing our person that has to go pick up whatever that product might be.
Yeah.
And so we have a bread place in front of that ice cream shop in West Covina. So for bread, we just have to walk across the street. So that's why I'm like, okay, this is in a very small scale. It's relatable to the product not having too many SKUs. The thinking of implementing a product that could make things worse. Working capital has been an issue, so we had the partners that keep putting money in there. We wish we had lines of credit. We don't, because we're not qualified as of right now, not to credit issues, due to legal issues. And so all that stuff is just relatable with one small little business, aside what I do for my main business.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I wanted to go back and add some things, circling it back a little bit to, Ed mentioned it, you've mentioned it, Edgar, Ron's mentioned it, but I had to go back through some of my Twitter feeds and look, this forward-looking, what's going to be 2024. And, we have this big technology push with AI, and the more I play with it, the more interesting it becomes. What that really means for the small business is something that you can do at an ice cream shop or in your own business, and that really is the customer experience. And I think one of the things that I found again through the Twitter things is Forbes actually mentioned one of 2024's things that most important is the customer experience revolution. Ron's talked about customer experience for my whole career. So, I understand that that's important, but the big guys have figured it out. And that's driven through technology, whether it's marketing engines like Salesforce or HubSpot, whether it's these automated pieces like Amazon has, where, our little Amazon Echo will tell us a package is at our door. These are the touch points that become so valuable. And it's not generally too expensive for the small business owner to train his people up to say hi and, be cordial. With my son working at Chick-fil-A, they are the best at training those people, just like in and out. These kids that get their entry jobs into those organizations know they're going to get some really, soft skills. And it doesn't cost too much to have a good experience, from the emails to the every single touch along the line, from, you know, what is that experience like? And I mentioned it not too long ago. You know, we were at, you know, my wife likes this local little hole in the wall bar. Everybody knows your name there. It's just like Cheers. But the guy is such an ass. He is just the worst bartender ever. He beats you up. It's kind of his thing. It's his shtick, right? Well, unless you know him, you don't know it's a shtick, right? It's just abuse. But if you know him, that's exactly who he is, and that's why the locals love it. It's maybe maybe he's defending himself from the looky-loos. That doesn't work very often. And if you go to just your small food location and, you know, you wait in line, they're not paying attention to you, you can't get your order in, all that, you go, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm not coming back again, even if they had a really nice item on the menu. So all the small businesses have to really start to think about the big guys now being able to do it at scale. And so that scale becomes a big deal.
Yeah.
Not only do they have the balance sheet there, they can do it, but they're now hiring these chief experience officers to make sure that the flow through the whole corporation, all their locations, have this same sort of kindness, same sort of customer service. And that's, you know, to be really honest, the small business owner can do that at any point in time. They just have to be nice and cordial, follow through with whatever they said they're going to do. The medium-sized businesses, it becomes more challenging because you're tugging between, should we train our people or should they just be working, you know, those sort of things. And these large corporations now have the tools to do it at scale, which is a big challenge for the little guy.
Yeah, very, very true. Good additional comment. And that's one of the bright spots. I don't know that most people will be able to implement that right away, but it's certainly a piece of the future. Yeah.
Can I add something real quick about AI? I used AI to make the icons of every single ice cream shop flavor we have. I used AI to make the description for each of those ice cream shops that we have. I used AI to make the employee handbook of how they're supposed to smile, talk to the people, all that good stuff. So AI has been a big part of, like, I used AI recently, not ready there yet, of uploading a photo of what I have and have it make it a little bit better for me. Now, it did it too well that it's not recognizable as a product we sell. But it's to that level yet where I don't think we're going to struggle giving that experience to the customer if we utilize AI pretty well. And I'm using technology for a very small business at a level that a big business normally would use. So I have a POS system attached to a third-party app called Shogo, which dumps all the sales data into my accounting software automatically every single day at the end of the day. And I can divide it by departments based on the POS. So if I wanted to create an inventory system based on weights, that POS software that I have, the integrations, I'm only one step away from doing it. I do my own bookkeeping. I don't have a bookkeeper because they do bookkeeping for taxes, not for my system, for my break even, if we like to say. So, but I am a 36-year-old that's pretty knowledgeable with technology. The problem would be is all these smaller businesses, I think they're going to have to adapt quickly to be able to have, let's just say, medium-sized company or even small in terms of the government company, and have their own balance sheet, profit and loss statement. Is more of a reality now than it was probably 5 years ago. The technology is there. The price to get that done is also there. And it doesn't take a lot of training based on my experience in the last 2 years, year and a half, of doing your own bookkeeping. It's not very hard to teach. It's not difficult to teach somebody to do it for you. What is hard is what you do with the documents afterwards, right? But at the end of it all, I'm just showing my sister how to play basketball with these items. I sync it for her, so she wakes up every morning, goes into her accounting software, and all she has to do is categorize things. She doesn't have to worry about the tech side of things. And very randomly calls me because of a random purchase that was made that doesn't make any sense, and then I just guide it through it. So I generally think that this is the new era of small businesses having the accounting for their businesses now more accessible than ever.
Yeah, absolutely right.
That's what makes you so special, Edgar, for an investor. An investor would love what you just said, because you are taking the whole process and automating it. And you've got intellectual knowledge of what's going on, very detail oriented, so you can support how well you're servicing your customers. What you need to think about, in my opinion, is how do you take the one store location and expand it, scale it up, because and get investors to help you fund it, to take advantage of economies of scale.
Yeah, and it's the fear of the unknown, I think, that freezes me sometimes because I'm comfortable in my small little world, but once it's something bigger like that, it freezes me a little bit. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome, but it's almost like it's awesome far away, but I don't know how far it really is.
Yeah.
That's the part I'm not always sure.
Well, you've done all the hard part. All the heavy lifting has already been accomplished. It's amazing what you do with very little. And to be able to scale it up, then you take further advantage of that. What you have learned in this ice cream shop is pretty impressive and can help you determine what your next step is for expansion.
Yeah, and absolutely. If it wasn't all the theory part that we learned here and in school and in banking, I had to implement it in real life to understand it. And that's what the ice cream shop did.
And also what's really important, what you said up front, you had two. One was underperforming. You made the hard decision to say, hey, let's move that one out. Let's focus on the one where we're making money.
Yeah, that's very
hard to do
Yeah.
for an entrepreneur. They don't want to do that.
and
They
that's
want
what-
to keep everything rolling.
and if you
No,
take
yeah,
a
we
look at
needed to get rid of it. Yeah, it's the cap of that ice cream shop. I generally think it's $30,000 a month. That's no more sales than that, and it has to do with where it's located, the size of it, the shopping place we're at, the people that live around the area. I generally think that has a cap of $30K a month, and that right now is like about 20, and it's peaking about 13 during bad days. So I would have to go nuts, and I could probably make it work to get it to 30. But the amount of work effort it will take to get it to 30 would have been ridiculous, and I'm not ready for that. But I could do that in West Covina and get 60 out of it probably.
So all you have to solve now is the location analysis for the next restaurant.
Yes, I think that's a huge thing.
That's
Like
the deal. You got to
location is very important.
find a few more markets, and then and if you decide to go that direction, the research that I've done in the past basically indicates that you have to plan on 4. You know, having 3 doesn't make any sense, and that's because you need that much money for administration for the additional units. And when you have 2, you're spending a whole bunch of time trying to make, as you said, the one work, when really the first one is going to do fine and is going to continue to grow. You just need to get rid of, and the number of them that fail will probably be 2 out of 3. But if you find 3 or 4 of them that can work as nicely as that, now you're talking $100, $150, $200,000 of revenue a month. Now you've got a pretty nice business that's really churning some cash. So that's why you think about a little larger business, is because of the multiplying
And
success.
here's a very interesting niche that came out of the ice cream shop. Once that people know that I have one, they want to learn how I opened it. I was like,
Wow.
oh, well, partnership, we got an existing one, we rebranded it, we fixed the name on around it, reviews, we focused on that, blah, 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 right? And so we didn't have to go rebuild one from zero. We just took one that was already failing. And everybody's like, oh, you can't do that. It was like, we'll do pretty well. I generally think we've cleaned the reputation, reviews are up. The biggest part that's happening is people want to open their own, and they want to use my logos, they want to use my content, everything I created already, they want to use that. I'm like, it's like, will you pay rent for that?
That's called a franchise. That's what.
Yeah,
that's your goodwill, and
and they want my
big
photo.
asset.
They want to use everything. I'm like, you know what? And then the recipes, I asked the guy that knows the recipes, like, if I charge them rent to use your logo, would you train them? And then we put a schedule how much they're training them. So I offered somebody that option. They haven't gone through with it, but I charge in a monthly fee. I already know what's reasonable based on sales, that it won't break the bank, and when to charge it. We're probably not going to charge it in October, November, December, and whatever that fee is has to be paid prior to that, monthly. And I threw a number out there for them, and they liked it, and now they're interested in opening their own ice cream shop. They put all the capital, they put all the money, they'll do everything, and they'll just pay me rent to use whatever I already built.
So now you've just started a franchise business right after you got rid of your second store. That's a business.
Basically.
That's a
Yeah,
brilliant
it's
move,
basically
actually.
what happens.
That's
So
a business.
I talked to people. They want to use all my stuff because I put a lot of work on the marketing part.
Oh, of
things,
course.
Make sure it looks pretty. They see the manuals, they see everything. They're like, oh my God, this is really valuable. It's like, I know it's valuable because I put a lot of effort into it. And I know this doesn't exist in a small business.
It's not
So
the
it's-
effort that you put into it. It's the amount of profit that can be made from the next store. So it's a lot more valuable than maybe.
And I showed them the numbers, about the profit and loss balance, and I told them you have to make this much money for it to be a job, a self-employment, and you have to make this much money for it to be profitable. So if you're confident you can make this much money in your area, they're like, yeah, it's on the. They know they're smart. They have businesses. They have taquerias. They have all these things, but they don't have the branding that I created for the ice cream shop. And I still keep creating. Every single month, they create something new or come up with a new thing.
It's
And
really,
so,
yeah, it's really hard to protect all that stuff. I hope you've tried to copyright and trademark that stuff.
as much as I can, I'm probably going to do trademark with it. But I learned that too. It's part of the risk. Just go out there and if you keep hiding under a couch, you're never going to make anything with it anyways.
Yeah. So
That's absolutely correct.
Well, gentlemen, this is we're out of time. This has been a really great discussion, and I hope that those of you out there watching will take heed, and hopefully some of the things we've discussed will the problems that you're going to face. You'll have a little bit of an idea as to how to handle those in your own business. Thanks.